how do you upgrade your property and increase your rent? Is it possible to upgrade your property and increase your rent? So here we have a couple of questions for us as investors in real estate, which I'd like us to ponder. I don't know whether guys have asked themselves this, but one of the things, immediately you've built and you've got your property, you want to fill it up with tenants. So one of the first things you want to ask yourself, having progressed and you're collecting your rents, what is the market rate for my property in the area that it is? What is the market rate of my property? And then what, am I getting market rate for my property? Those are some of the questions, we'd want to ask ourselves. Are comparable units, earning higher rents, and why? Whether it's commercial or residential, are I getting, are there people who are getting higher rents, or are there units that are getting higher rents? And then another question you want to ask yourself, has my rental income stagnated over the last couple of years? Interesting questions, eh? And then another question we want to ask ourselves, what are our overheads and what are the trends? Because here we want to ask, then these questions will help us answer how you upgrade your property in order to earn higher rents. Because let me start with the first question. Is anybody, by the way, who has asked themselves this question? What is the market rate? I think one of the participants, Mary, we had this discussion during the week about market rate. Is that correct, Mary?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, we're talking about, because one of the things as a landlord you must be aware of is what is the market rate of your property and comparable properties, because you don't want your property to be above market rate. Because if it's above market rate, you will have vacant units. If it's below market rate, then you'll be like someone who's planted, on a shamba, and then instead of harvesting 100% or 95%, you're harvesting 70 or you're harvesting 60. So you want to ensure that your market, the rent that you're charging is the market rate. So you've got to be aware of what is the market rate as an investor in real estate. Okay, and especially this one of where you are, sometimes where you get, there's a flip side of also tenants who pay on time, or some even pay in advance. They do that sometimes to ensure that they don't rock the boat, that you don't start getting ideas and start questioning, hey, by the way, can I get another tenant? Can I get, And then the other question you want is this one of comparable units. And here we are talking about, when I say comparable units, I'm talking about, don't compare a 2-bedroom apartment that has a swimming pool with another 2-bedroom apartment that does not have a swimming pool. Or don't compare a bed-sitter in Kilimani with a bed-sitter in Ruaka. You can't compare the two. What are the rents, in comparable units? And then you really want to ask if your rent is stagnating, why? And remember our question here, which we want to answer, is how can we earn the optimal rent, good rent for our investment? And so we want our rents as investors to be gradually going up, because the cost of living and the cost of business. I think one time we had that discussion with Dr. Kibata here about how things have gone up. You want the only, to survive in business, you also got to increase your revenues to meet the increased expenses. I think that's correct, isn't it? Clem, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yes.
But I have a question, so I can actually wait towards the end of it, or I can ask right now.
Yeah,
should I go ahead?
just shoot. Mhm.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I heard what you said about making sure that you price your rent exactly correctly with the area that you live in. One
Yes.
of the issues that I've had in a property that I own in on Riera Road is
Yes.
is since COVID,
Mhm.
I lowered my rents because, of course, people are having difficulty paying.
Mhm.
But then this particular tenant who lives in my property there
Mhm.
is actually a very good tenant, has consistently paid rents
Yes.
on time. So sometimes I feel as though if I increase the rent, she might leave. But if I don't increase the rent, then I have a reliable tenant who can give me the money as I need. So it's really a decision between should I increase the rent and I run into people who might not be as consistent or reliable as the old tenant, or should I keep it where it is and then continue to have peace of mind that the rent comes in on time? How would you navigate that if it was you? Thank you.
Thanks, Clem, for your question. Now, that answers what I was saying. You see, there are times when tenants do not want to rock the boat. They know they are paying below market rate. So they pay on time. They even pay a little bit in advance. Sometimes, tenants pay on the 27th, 28th, 25th, because guys get paid, most good companies pay on the 25th. So this one wants to make sure they pay in advance, so that way claim you're not tempted to to increase the rent. I would say in such a case, let's do a small analysis of the area, and don't be afraid to increase rent. I was just about to say that the projections of rental increment were rocked by the COVID pandemic, and for sure, especially in the two areas were adversely affected. Like on Riara Road, the high end, that's middle to high end, and the commercial spaces. Okay, those ones were they were affected by COVID somewhat. But then it's not all areas that were affected. And these ones are actually, this high end and middle end are actually coming to stabilize. But there's something here which I also wanted to share. During the COVID pandemic, there's something we discovered, and my team is here to back what I'm saying. For rents that are 50,000 and below, whereas tenants did move out because some lost jobs or their businesses, buckled up. But between 60 and below, there was actually kind of a consistent occupancy. And what happened is that the guys who are now paying 90, 100, 120, they actually downsized. So on this income bracket, we had like a consistent occupancy. So you want to ensure, okay, this is good news for you. And not only was it consistent, now if it was consistent during COVID, you know what has happened thereafter? I have good news for landlords. Anybody with a house that is below 50,000, the rents have actually been going up gradually, okay? And they are looking up for those that are about 50, 60. And for those ones that are above 60, there's actually a stabilization that is happening. They're not yet where they are, but they are slowly rising. There are some areas where actually the occupancy is quite high. So,
Larry.
Yes.
There were two questions on the chat.
Yes.
They are the same type. I don't want us to look like we've ignored them. So, Bruce Omondi is saying they actually are the same thing. I have an apartment, but I have no tenant yet. What is the best way to get a tenant if I'm far away? Okay. And then the second one is from Zipporah Rotich. Good evening, and thank you for this platform. Just secured a one-bedroom apartment on Ngong Road near Lenana School. No tenant yet. What's the best model? B and B or tenant under lease? Under a lease agreement. I think you can go on, since I have noted them and they are the same, then we can have at the Q&A. What do you think?
Yeah, I think let's finish first.
Yeah.
Because actually we're going a little bit slow on time. So what I'm going to share today is things that we've actually done with properties which we manage and things that we are actually continuing to do. So it's something that you can actually tap in. I'm not coming to give you theories here. We are giving solutions that we've actually tried. So, you know, I can picture all of us, how, you know, looking like this guy and, you know, saying, okay, how is this going to be done? It can actually be done. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to separate, because here I know there are different kind of investors. There are guys who've invested in residential units, and there are people who have invested in commercial. And what I'm going to try and do is trying to answer how you do this strategically without getting out of pocket, and ensuring, you know, it's a balance between cost and revenue. You want to ensure that you're not overspending, but you're spending, you're giving a good product. One of the things that we, you know, that I think Brenda alluded to, is if your rents are not increasing gradually, ask yourself, am I giving the right product? What kind of product am I giving out there? Because a house is like a public service vehicle. It's out there for the public. And, you know, people will choose depending on how good a service or a product that you're giving. So you've got to always ensure that the product you're giving is something that people are happy to consume. And so let's go into the residential. Now, residential units, I'm going to start from the low end. I'm going to assume here, by there I'm going to assume that in this, maybe you can just, with a show of hands, you can show how many of you are in commercial, how many are in residential. So I'm going to start right from the bottom, and I'm going to come up all the way to the top. Now, the first thing, this looks very simple, residential units. There's the kitchen, there's the lighting, there's the sitting rooms, bathrooms, and exterior. But in the kitchen, I'll start it this way. Your kitchen sets the tone for the whole house. If you have an outdated kitchen, then you have a big problem in that house. All kitchens need to be modern. And starting from the bottom end, bed sitters. Bed sitters, I'll go straight to the worktop. Your worktop has got to be a minimum of tiles. If you have bed sitters, let's say in Ruaka, in Kitengela, where else, maybe at the river, you've got to ensure that your worktop has got tiles. The days of Formica and cement, my brothers and sisters, that one doesn't work. Okay. And nowadays, in Kilimani, they've got a new form of bed sitter. It's called a studio. You can see the kind of quality that is coming out. Let's move on from bed sitters to 1 and 2 bedroom units. If you have 1 and 2 bedroom units, and you have those properties again in places you have multiple units, you must have a granite top, a granite worktop. It is a must. And not only a granite worktop, you also have to ensure that your tiling for the wet area is done. You know, we've noticed something in these areas I'm talking about. The new units that are coming up, all of them have granite worktop. So you can imagine this tenant is looking, do I go to this 1 or 2 bedroom apartment that has tile, or do I go to that one on granite worktop? Your guess is as good as mine, isn't it? I mean, it's a no-brainer. This guy will go straight for the place where there's a granite worktop. And, you know, it's, if you have like, you know, like if you have units in South B and South C, it's again there, it's a no-brainer. You have to ensure that your worktops are up to scratch, not outdated. Then we go to units that are 3 bedroom. Now here you'll start moving up a little bit even more. Not only will you have to have a kitchen, granite worktop, you'll have to have MDF. And you have to ensure that you have safe storage for your gas. So it would be good if your gas can be stored elsewhere. These are the trends that are coming up with new properties. So you don't want to be a person who invested, let's say 5, 6, 7 years ago, and then you're finding, hey, what's happening to my rentals? They're just somewhere, you know? Now, if you're here and you have, let's say, like those properties in, maybe on Riara Road, Kilimani, South B, South C, and yes, you're wondering, I have tiles in my house, but still my rents have been stagnant. There are some tiles nowadays that have become outdated. Those ones that have flowers, there are some a little bit outdated. The ones that are 6 by 6, and they used to look good. Anybody with a kitchen like that, and you're renting out, and you're wondering why, any volunteer there? Someone can talk about that one. But if you have that kind of kitchen worktop, you need to change it. It's got to change. And the competition has become so serious. You can see we've even got foreign players in the up market. We have the Chinese, we have some Ethiopians, we have guys from all over the place, and they've come to compete in this sector because it's a good sector. We are told that 70% of the world's billionaires invest in real estate. Why? Because there's a good return. And that's why people have got to keep on improving what they're offering. And I'll say here, even if you own a block of apartments and you're thinking, look, I've got 30, I've got 40 apartments, how do I change the granite tops? And it's costly. I'm not lying to you that it's cheap, but the return on investment will be much greater than what you'll spend. So my solution there is talk to your contractor, do it in phases, do like one floor or do a certain block. And you know what? Immediately you change those ones, you can up the rents. Of course, you do that in line with your lease. Number 2 is lighting. Lighting, it changes the ambience in a place. Okay, so what we've got to do with light fittings is that for properties that are earning 15K and above, you've got to come out of the ceiling rose lighting. The ceiling rose is where you have that I don't know whether you've seen that single bulb hanging from the ceiling. Any rent that is above 15,000, you've got to have a chandelier in the sitting room, or worst case scenario, wall lights. And nowadays the Chinese have come and brought very affordable lighting. And here we need to innovate and ensure that even the bedrooms have either wall lighting or they have chandeliers, and make sure that when you enter a room and there's a good light and there's a chandelier, it changes everything. Number 3 is the sitting room. The finishings in the sitting rooms have also changed. There's something that has worked almost like magic in our sitting rooms, and it's called gypsum. Before we would have, right round the roof would have a wooden cornice. Nowadays we're having what we call gypsum. I'm sure most of us are familiar with gypsum. You've got to have gypsum finishes. And this gypsum, because it's easy to work with. You have things like downlights. You can have different kind of lights coming from that gypsum, and it just changes the ambience in that in your sitting room. And this will apply to single units. It will apply to multiple units. And as we speak, by the way, these are things that we are recommending to one of our clients who has a block of apartments in Ruaka. We are recommending, and we're in the process of getting quotations for this, because we realized that we had actually hit a plateau in the rental yield. Why? Because all the surrounding houses, they've got the gypsum finish, they've got chandeliers, and then the kitchens are granite worktops. And my friend Modengi here, who is in our maintenance department, is busy getting those quotations, because we told our client, look, we've hit a plateau and we've got to improve on what we are doing. The other thing is bathrooms. I know that again, bathrooms, it looks like bathrooms are just, it's a simple thing. we've got to ensure, right from bed sitters to 1 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms that we have tiled all the wet areas. This helps in maintenance and it helps in the outlook. And then now we are moving to things called shower cubicles. When you have, I know all of us, a majority of us are familiar with shower cubicles. Let's get rid of this thing of curtain rods and have shower cubicles, because now it gives it a nice, a nice look. And I'll reiterate again, you could have a house, a nice house, which you bought maybe 10 years ago in Lavington or, somewhere, and or South Sea. And then there are those bathroom tiles. I don't know whether people remember them. Those ones that were 6 by 6 and they are white and the bathroom looks all nice and white. If you have those, I would really encourage us to change that a little bit to the new modern look and give the bathroom, nowadays we have designs in bathrooms, in the bathroom tiles. And this is, even in the low-cost housing, it's happening. So you can imagine if you have a house in South B, Nairobi West, or somewhere in Mombasa, in Nyali, and you still have those old tiles, you need to change them. Otherwise, what happens is that your rents are going to stagnate. The last one is the exteriors. There are so many times, and Eunice can bear me witness, we are going to show a house or an apartment to a prospective tenant. And the tenants just look from the outside and they say, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go. I don't even want to see the interior of the house. The exterior of the house speaks about, it's a first impression. And this is the responsibility primarily of the landlord. So you want to make sure, even if you have a good tenant who is paying you, every 2 or 3 years, and ensure that your exterior paint is well done. But again, we are talking about, when we talk about exterior paint, there are also ways of doing it so that you don't have to do it every 2 or 3 years. You can do it in a sustainable way. You can get specific exterior paint. And if you own an apartment in a place where there's a block of apartments, like Clem, where you own a block of apartments on Riara Road, something, if it doesn't have Cabro, ensure that you do. We've seen a world of a difference where Cabro has been done in the area, and it has improved. And the exterior paints, there's a property that we manage in Kileleshwa, and we have that particular unit. They are very, what do I call it? They are very diligent in their exterior painting. And another one we did recently on Rose Avenue. Those properties are fetching premium, slightly above market rate rent because of that. So this, we will not limit them to this, but if you do the kitchen, if you do your lighting, if you do your sitting room, you do your bathrooms and your exteriors, I assure you, your rents will be, you'll be able to attract rents that are competitive, and not only competitive, you'll be able to go just a little bit above market rate. Are we still together there? Anybody? Are we still together there?
Yes, we are. Yeah, we are very informative.
Okay. So now let's move on to the commercial sector. I know there are those of us who've invested. I know Philip is in the commercial sector. He's invested in some commercial property. If you've invested in commercial properties, again, there are some key areas that you'd want to look at. And the first one is your exterior paint. But let me just say something about commercial properties. Commercial properties right now, they are about 70% of what they were pre-COVID. COVID really affected commercial space. So if you want commercial space and you're wondering, you're not yet at 100%, is it just you, or it's a trend? It's actually, we're at about 70 to 80% occupancy. That is the trend across, across the board, because COVID had a very serious effect on commercial property. Occupancy went down to 50, some even went as low as 30. And, as people downsized, restaurants were closed, it was crazy. But now we've seen a gradual rise in that. And so what do you do in commercial properties? Because in residential properties, guys are looking for two things. Sorry, I forgot to mention. In residential properties, guys are looking for comfort and they're looking for budget. Now, in commercial properties, people are looking to sell their businesses. So when we say, like, let's go to number one, exterior paint. Exterior paint actually, and the exterior finish brands the commercial property. And as it brands the commercial property, the businesses that are interested in locating in that building are able to identify with this brand and then occupy the premises. So let me give you an example of exterior finishes or exterior paint. There are grade A offices. I'm sure we've all traveled on Waiyaki Way. We've seen like where ABC is, those are grade A offices, or Sanlam Towers on Waiyaki Way, or where KPMG is at ABC, and where PwC is. When you see these glass exteriors, those are grade A offices. Grade A offices are the top range of office space, where they have things like a double backup generator, and they have treated borehole water. But if now you're at grade B, you've got to brand your exterior. You've got to brand your exterior in such a way that you're speaking to the target market. Because in commercial space, you're not just putting up a building, or you're not just investing without thinking of who are you targeting. So you've got to ensure that the way you brand is the way, your exterior paint speaks to the target market that you're looking to attract. And so when we talk about exterior paint, we are saying here, this is a commercial property, it must always look good. How do I go about this? It has a huge surface area. There are specific exterior paints that last 7 years, and your building can actually be looking good for a nice period of time. And, if you have those other exterior finishing, like glass and stuff, you've just got to make sure that they are well cleaned. But for those of us who would want to paint, and this goes down, even when you go from grade B offices and you go a little bit lower, wherever your office, you have commercial space that you're letting out, you've got to ensure that the exterior speaks to your target market, and it's actually helping the business inside the building market themselves. We are located where we are at Bishop Magwa because we can easily brand Canaan Properties outside. And when you see us outside Bishop Magwa, you can see Canaan Properties. So we are located where we can brand. You also, the businesses that will occupy your premises will be located there because they can sell from where they are. So exterior, first impressions, make sure you get it right. Then we go to interior decor. And sometimes people have themes. You can have if you're let's say in grade B and you want to have your place look like it's a green place, you've got to ensure that when people come inside, they find flower pots, they find open spaces, so that the exterior brand matches the interior brand, and you're speaking one language and you're speaking to your clientele. If you have grade A or you're looking to target grade A, then you have to have biometric sensors, you have to have the sensor, sliding doors, everything has got to be grade A. So you've got to, there's no point of, remember we're optimizing rent. You don't want to invest so much in biometric, entry points in, let's say you have commercial space in Buruburu. It won't really add that much value to your rent. But if you decorate the exterior and the interior properly and speak to your grade B, grade C office space, then you will have spent optimally and you'll be talking to your clients. So the interior, again, there's paint that you can use that is easily cleanable, and you just need to get good cleaners and ensure that it's well decorated. Let's move on to the washrooms. Washrooms in commercial spaces are common. And people are looking, one, for privacy and for comfort. So you've got to ensure that your washrooms, the kitchens, the bathrooms are clean. They are clean, they provide privacy, and they are well decorated. And those things of having in commercial spaces, it doesn't matter where your commercial space is. It could be, let's say, somewhere in Buruburu, because this place is common. You don't want that thing of, I don't know that you've been to a place and you find the toilet, the handle is broken. So there's like a funny wire that has been put over there. This is a common place and everybody is using it. You want to ensure that those common places are well maintained. Yeah. So that when people are comfortable there, then of necessity, they, when they are going out and, nowadays there's so much commercial space available for people to look at. If you're looking for commercial space today, you're almost, if you're the person who is letting, you're almost the person who is at an advantage as opposed to the landlord. You'll be spoiled for choice, more or less. So the last thing you want is people turning back and saying, the interior of that commercial space, just wasn't good. Even if you have rental shops, and you have common maybe bathrooms at the back, tile them, make sure that they're well done, guys are comfortable in that place. Something that is usable, and have regular cleaners, guys who come and clean them, because this is common. I'll really reemphasize this because it turns back a lot of prospective tenants when they go to a commercial place and what is common cannot be used. Number 4 is something we discovered. The effects, COVID had serious effects on all of us. Today we are on Zoom probably because of COVID. And because people worked from home, they got this thing of open spaces and greenery. And it forever changed some of the things we do. So one thing we would advise, if you have commercial space and you have open places, please put in as much green as you can. People want to feel like they're at home. People want to feel like they've relaxed. There's something soothing about green. People just see green and they kind of relax. If you have a rooftop, an open, you have a flat rooftop, put gazebos there. Let guys go and have a breakout area. Now, this will greatly, greatly, greatly improve your rental yield in commercial spaces. People are looking for that COVID thing. It made people, people are still thinking about, can I work from home? Do I work in the office? How comfortable can I be in the office? Some days, can I work at home? So you want to create that atmosphere in your commercial spaces that people are still working from home. And one great example is a property that we got just at the end of COVID, I think end of 2021. There's a residential court that we had, that we took over. The owners decided to turn it into a commercial space. And this place had great green areas, but it was residential. So what we did is we emphasized with our client the green. And then we did these things that we are talking about. We redid the bathrooms, we redid the toilet, the bathrooms, we redid the floors, we removed old floors, we put, they had wooden parquet floors, we put tiles, we changed the doors, just made it a little bit modern. And that was end of 2021. In 4 months, I think we were at about 40%. By month 9, we were at 70%. As we speak, we are at 100% on this commercial space. And you know what? We are at 100%, and we are 20% more expensive in terms of office space than any other. Why? Because we have adapted to the way things have changed. That, I mean, and this is a fact that can be corroborated by my staff here. We have that office park at Hurlingham, and they're enjoying, you know, the owners are just enjoying premium rents simply because they have modified, you know, and adapted to what is happening in the market. Then the last tip I will talk about in commercial space is parking. You know, most commercial buildings have a challenge in parking. You find that maybe, you know, the design team, they underestimate, or you find that you have these clients who have many cars to park, and there's inadequate parking in, you know, in some commercial spaces. If you're a landlord and maybe even you don't have such a big premises, but you're finding that there's just a problem, or you have a maisonette which you've turned into a commercial space, and you're wondering, where will these guys get parking? Be innovative. Go and negotiate for parking. And we've seen that, and some of our clients have done that, where you negotiate for parking. There are very many empty plots and people looking, you know, to co-own and to have parking. There's a property we were letting out on Wood Avenue, and it's still there, and it's, you know, it's up, and there's a challenge of parking, and you know, the landlord was negotiating all the way up to the former Uchumi Hyper. There was parking there, and there was that negotiation so that this client is not out of parking, and it's not too far in terms of walking distance. So that's what we have. Those are some of the tips we have for you in terms of residential and commercial units. And these are things we've done. There's something that, there's a place that I always want to talk about, just to again re-emphasize this. There's Yaya Center. Yaya Center is about 36, 37 years old. But Yaya Center is able to compete with contemporary office malls and, you know, commercial space around there. Right opposite Yaya, you've seen very many commercial spaces coming up. But the occupancy at Yaya is maybe 80–90%. I think they're above 90%. Why? Because they are always innovating, changing their bathrooms, changing this and the other. The other day, there's a time they changed their parking. There's a time they changed, what was it? The exterior paint. But it's done in small, manageable portions. As an investor in real estate, we actually advised to keep 4% of your annual rent, so that in 25 years, whatever investment you have made, you are able to completely reinvent that property. And this property that you have invested in, you know, it can just keep on taking care of itself. Look at it this way. You've invested in this machine that is generating you money. You've got, this is your factory, the one that makes, what is it? Bottled water. But now instead of bottled water, you're giving out public, you're giving out residential and commercial space. You want to keep aside so that the machinery that generates for you, that generates the drinking water and affords you passive income is well oiled and well greased, and you can replace that machine. So just keep that at the back of your mind. 4% of your annual rent. If you can't do at least 2%, I assure you, whenever there's a need to reinvest, to upgrade your property, you will be able to do that comfortably without breaking a sweat, without having to have, a fundraiser within yourself, which is very difficult. It means you have to go to the bank, and bank loans are not cheap. So at this point, maybe I can take a few questions from people. Thank you.
Larry.
Yes.
So there were the two questions about not having tenants, and then we also have a question from Philip Wambua, who's asking, is there a trend toward all-en-suite bathrooms? Is it all-en-suite bathrooms or bedrooms?
All-en-suite bedrooms.
Yeah. So we can start off with those. Everyone, just type in your question or just raise your hand if you have a question to ask as it goes on.
Okay. Is there a trend? Yes and yes. Well, there is, but what we find is that the all-en-suite are now premium apartments. Okay. So yes, there's a trend. If you're looking for premium apartments, there'll be all-en-suite. If they are not premium, the all-en-suite are the premium. I would call it not more of a trend, but more of a premium. If you notice nowadays, the apartments that are being advertised, they are different in pricing. It's a 3-bedroom apartment. It's let's say, for argument's sake, it's 25 million. There's another 3-bedroom apartment. It's going for 20 million, and another 3-bedroom going for 18. Now you'll find that the one for 25 is all-en-suite. This other one is 2-en-suite, and then there's 1-en-suite. So that I would say, as opposed to being a trend, it is a premium unit that is being offered out there. Yeah. The other one was? The other question was?
The other one was they have a unit, okay, and they don't have a tenant. What's the best way to get a tenant even far away? And then the other one was asking, which is the best model, to have it as a B&B or as a tenant, or have a tenant?
If you're far away and you have a vacant unit, I would advise that you get somebody to manage your property, who you can hold to account for the sales and marketing of it. That's what I would say, especially if you're not nearby, because also there's the risk of leaving it and having people just who will you leave the keys with? If you live with the caretaker, and nowadays people are really being conned, especially in vacant units. There are all manner of unscrupulous, what do I call it, agents and stuff like that, who will take deposits from people, and yeah, so you've got to be careful in that. As to whether you want to do an Airbnb or to leave it, Airbnbs means that you run the apartment yourself. Airbnbs, because of the short stay, are usually run by owners, and usually they are single units. So although, okay, there are players who, as Canaan, we don't manage Airbnbs. I know there are people who specifically manage Airbnbs, but Airbnbs are high traffic. You have someone coming in maybe for 2 days, 1 day, 3 days, 4 days. So there's a lot of movement in and out. So most Airbnbs are run by the owners because they can be there today, tomorrow, the other day, like that. There are people who just specialize in managing Airbnbs. If you reach out to me, I can give you a contact of someone who does that. Any other question? Is there a question perhaps I've not answered, or something you feel that you want to?
There is Paula Chege.
Yes.
Do you think Kilimani and Kileleshwa congestion will become like pipeline with a limited infrastructure?
Kilimani, Kileleshwa.
Yeah.
Kilimani, Kileleshwa, well, it's getting congested. But with the congestion, I think the government has stepped in a little bit. Before you could have construction of studios, they've stopped construction of studios. I need to confirm whether it's 1 or 2 bedroom. There are no more studios that are being constructed. So the government also became cognizant of that we are having a huge population and too many units concentrated in an area. It could, if there's no control, if there's no regulation, it could. Yeah, but you know, with the competition, I must say that in the Kilimani and Kileleshwa, also the kind of developments that are coming up, because we have foreigners who are investing in this space, they've come up with very trendy things. So it will take a little bit of time before, you know, it becomes a, you know, as it were, you know, the sheer numbers start bringing down the quality. Yeah. Anybody else?
I'm not seeing anybody and any other, but we'd also like to we'd like people to fill in the form, the link there, to be able to get the recording. Gladys Kimani says very insightful, very useful insights. People, we need to just give comments, criticism, compliments. Yeah, the 3 C's: comments, criticism, and compliments. Okay, Mary has a related question. With the congestion in Kilimani/Kileleshwa, might water later be a challenge? Good question.
Yes, water is actually, it's actually beginning to become a challenge, because even with the boreholes, yeah, there's definitely an issue. As to how it's being addressed currently, I think that's why there was that, the government was doing the other, there was another water source that was being developed for Nairobi. And yeah, almost every other development has got borehole water. So that's one way that they are looking to mitigate that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, then we have Alice Wanaina. Presentation was insightful for me. Thanks, Larry.
Okay, I just wanted to say that also on residential units, what we advise landlords is that every 2 years, you've got to check what the market rate is, and, you know, taking into consideration what your lease stipulates, in line with your lease, review your rent. For commercial properties in the last 3 to 4 years, most office spaces have not been able to affect the escalation that is in the lease because of the occupancy. But still, you want to know what, even a lot of residential, even with the escalation in place, they've not been able to affect the increase in rent. But what we do at Canaan Properties is that whenever leases expire, or you know, just before our leases expire, we do a free rental assessment for the properties under our care, and we advise landlords on the best rent achievable for their units.
Okay, Bruce is asking, no, Bruce is saying, thanks, Larry. I'll get in touch with you. I appreciate. He was one who was saying about the tenant and being far away. Then Evans Kithinji, what do you recommend in relation to e-Teams registration?
And then I'll say that for e-Teams, e-Teams registration is basically to rope in taxpayers. It's more for people who own commercial properties. It does not affect people who own residential units. e-Teams is for people who own commercial properties whose rents actually go more than is it Ruth? What is the ceiling? I think it's, if your rents are more than 1.25 million a month, then you have to ensure that all your suppliers are on e-Teams, because the government will not recognize a supplier's invoice that is not registered on e-Teams. Ruth, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, and also the government reduce the rental income tax from 10% to 7.5.
Yeah, so for residential units, the rental tax has gone down. There's a small reprieve there. Any other question? And we actually have an offer for the guys. Yeah.
We have, wait, just a moment. We have Ima saying very practical tips and quite informative. Rosalind Amadi, thank you, Kanan. This information is very useful. So I think you do have an excellent offer for our participants today. I think you can go ahead and give them a gift, a pre-Easter gift. Let's call it that.
Yes.
Oh yeah, there's one more. Do you undertake residential properties rental assessments for specific areas? If yes, how often? So maybe I think you can give your Easter offer as we wrap up with that question.
Yeah, so for guys who've registered, who sign up their properties from this webinar, we're giving a 20% discount on management fees for 2 months. If you sign up with us and leave your property with us. Sorry, Brenda, your question was?
Okay, so you're giving a 20% discount on management for 2 months. You can sign up. Yes. Oh, excellent. So we have Masharia Migwi. Do you undertake residential properties rental assessments for specific areas? If yes, how often and how can we get access to this info?
Oh, okay. For residential, we do rental assessment. Rental assessment for residential can be done, but it's done more for commercial. We can do it for if someone requests. What we do, it's a whole report. It's like a valuation report. Usually rental assessments are done like if you have a tenant, like, for instance, you have neighbors who are occupying your space and the 10-year lease has come to an end and you want to advise them on how do you increase the rent or what would you do about this rent. But when we have residential units, we also do that, but we can, Masharia, we can do it on request for you for a specific, and then we can do a report for a specific area and give you a very good document on what is it, what is the, most people want to just go and look at a place and say, what are the rents here? But as we look at very many different variables, and yes, we can deliver that for you, Masharia, for residential units upon request. Have I answered you, Masharia? Masharia, I don't know if I've answered you. And I see that our time is well spent.
I'm not seeing any other.
Yes.
But I think we can be able to reach out to them.
Yes.
Yes. So maybe you can just give us your contact so that we know how to get to where you are.
Well, thank you very much for attending today's webinar. You can reach out to us in those numbers or that email address. And we are more than happy to answer any questions you might have on matters real estate. We help investors earn optimal rents by employing systems that are efficient to ensure that you get good and sustainable rent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Larry. That was so insightful. I learned so much. And yes, I'm actually very discontent with where I'm staying because the kitchen just is also old school. And I now realized why. So Larry, thank you so much for that. And I'd just like to say to all of you who are here, thank you so much. We don't take it for granted. You took out your time and you've come. Oh, Mashari has answered. Thank you, Larry and team. This was insightful. Okay, that's Mashari has answered. So thank you so much for all of you who took your time to come and join. And I really hope that we've learned a lot and we now know what to do next. I think with Larry, in being in Larry's able hands, you can be able to actually grow your income further. So thank you so much. Have a good night. Be blessed. And hoping to see you again when we have our next webinar.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you
night.
very much all for attending.
Yeah. So good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Welcome, Gladys.
Thank you. Good night.
Kwaherini.
Thank you,
Good night.
Larry. Good night.
Asante.